Today we will cross together centuries and centuries of history, walking on the paved path of the Via Sacra, made of glory and ruins, previously traveled by illustrious senators, consuls and emperors who contributed with their prowesses not only to the legendary affirmation of Rome as Caput Mundi, but also to the construction of its sparkling image made up of sumptuous temples and columns, which represented its boundless greatness. The history of the eternal city that, through centuries, will become the capital of the Roman Empire, starts with the world-known myth of the twins Romulus and Remus reported by the historian Livy. The legendary founders of Rome, descendants of Aeneas, whose father was thought to be Mars, god of war, were rescued from a basket flowing down the river Tiber by a she-wolf who nursed them inside her lair on Palatine Hill. Exactly here on April 21, 753 BC. Starting from the area between the Palatine and the Capitol Hill, Romulus began to build the first settlement of Rome, then expanded on the 7 hills including Aventine, Celian, Esquiline, Quirinal and Viminal. Legends apart, staying to the sources about the foundation reported by Livy, Plutarch and Dionysius of Halicarnassus, and to the actual archaeological remainings on site, nowadays at the foot of Palatine and Capitol Hill we can admire the ancient Rome city center. The Roman Forum. Exploring this area we find ourselves in front of a miscellaneous of ruins and reassembled buildings, so it's crucial understanding the chronology of this multitude of columns, capitals, and stylobates belonging to temples built in different times. As Rome grew in power and importance, the Forum expanded. The originary settlement reclaimed from the swamp, Cloaca Maxima, became in 509 BCE the location for the first sacred temple founded by the last king of Rome, Tarquinio the Superb. The temple was dedicated to the Capitoline Triad, alias the 3 gods protecting the city, Minerva, Juno, and Jupiter. The same area, in the early Republican age, saw the constructions of many other temples and public buildings overlooking a rectangular square or forum, inspired by the Greek agora, here in 498 BCE. Ancient Romans built the Temple of Saturn housing the state treasury, and the Tabularium containing a state archive, the Castor's Temple dedicated to the 2 heroes of the Lake Regillus battle, and the circular Temple of Vesta, preserving the flame sacred to Romans. Later on they built political spaces such as the Regia, the Curia, and the Comitium, serving as the council house for the Roman Senate. Progressively, as Rome became a multi-ethnic metropolis, the Forum became the meeting point where both Roman citizens and foreigners coming from all the provinces gathered here for trading or listening to political rallies. So, during the 4th and 3rd century BCE, here were built the rostra, a platform where orators could speak to their audience. Rostra was the Latin name for the banners subtracted from the prows of the defeated enemy warships that were showed in the Forum public square of the Forum. Through time, Romans introduced also a new building type, the basilica. This columnar hall had a multi-purpose use, from law courts to commerce or entertainments. The first basilicas were called Portia and Ulpia, unluckily destroyed, but on site, we can still admire some ruins belonging to the Basilica Aemilia and Sempronia. The late Republican period led to a great deal of monumental constructions in the Forum, so Julius Caesar in person strongly wanted the urban expansion of the Forum, buying himself the land necessary to amplify it. This new area will be baptized Imperial Forum or Caesar Forum, where in 46 BCE will born the temple of Venus Genitrix as a sign of gratitude for his victory in the Pharsalus battle. After Caesar's death, his urban planning program was carried forward by Augustus, who will build in the Imperial Forum the Temple of Mars Altar, alias Avenger, dedicated to the defeat of Caesar's assassins, Bruto and Cassio, in Philippi, and later on he will celebrate his accomplishments building his own dedicated forum and triumphal arch. Through centuries, each one of Caesar's successors such as Trajan, Nerva, Septimius Severus, will keep building his own monumental forum, leaving in the Eternal City a memorable trace of his own importance as emperor. Of course, there's no eternity in the world. The Roman Empire was divided between East and West. And later on, the old capital was looted of its treasures and its buildings were vandalized during the Sacco di Roma. Continuing our tour and looking up, towards 40 meters above the Roman Forum, our attention is captured by sumptuous palaces on top of the Palatine Hill. With its stunning overview over the Circus Maximus, on a side, and the Forum, on the other, the Palatine soon became for patricians and emperors the most habited location, where they started building their gorgeous palaces and domuses such as the House of Augustus and the House of Livia, his wife, the Domitian Palace including the Domus Flavia and the Domus Augustana. Naturally, also Nero has previously built his Domus Aurea, here on top of the Olympus of Rome. Emperor Augustus was the first in 36 BCE to build his residence on top of the hill. Incredibly, his imperial palace, called Domus Augustia, 8.351 square meters big, is still there, preserving some of the best examples of ancient Roman mosaics and paintings. All emperors built their representative palaces here, but nowadays most part of Palatine Hill is dominated by the ruins of Domitian's palace, built in 81 BCE. Domitian hired the architect Rabirius to create a massive imperial palace, coated with white Cappadocian marble. That contained two wings, the Domus Flavia, reserved for public functions, and the Domus Augustana, destined to private domestic use. The Domus Augustana main prospect had a curved covered gallery overlooking the Circus Maximo, and here the emperor had his own privileged private skybox to watch the chariot track races downstairs. We are now admiring the Circus Maximus, the largest chariot racetrack of ancient Rome. Also considered as one of the biggest historical sports fields ever existed. The Circus Maximus, located in the valley between the Palatine and Aventine Hills, was constructed in the 6th century BCE by the Roman king Tarquinius Priscus and later on, renovated in 50 BCE by Julius Caesar. The incredible stadium, 621 meters long and 150 meters wide, was big enough to accommodate a quarter of the population of Rome. The Circus, containing about 270,000 spectators, was Rome's largest venue for games, animal hunts, gladiatorial fights and religious festivals called Ludi Romani that took place every year and lasted 135 days. After the construction of the Colosseum, gladiatorial games were moved there, so the Circus Maximus was slowly dismissed. We continue our tour, following the footsteps of the ancient Romans, so, walking on Via dei Fori Imperiali and leaving on our right side the Republican Forum, and on the left side the Imperial Forum, in front of us. Our attention is captured by the magnificence of the most popular amphitheater in the world, the Colosseum. Through centuries, this amphitheater witnessed fights of valuable gladiators, murders of Christians by ferocious beasts, and all kinds of entertainment for the joy of the population and its emperor, who had power of life or death over the unfortunate. The original name of the arena was Flavian Amphitheater, related to the fact that it was built in 72 AD by the emperors Vespasian and Titus, belonging to the Flavian dynasty, but it was most commonly called Colosseum, due to the great statue of Nero, that was located at the entrance of the Domus Aurea, previously existing in the same site. In fact, the Colosseum was built in a valley, after drying a small lake belonging to the Domus Aurea, located between the Palatine, Esquiline and Celio hills. The amphitheater was opened by Emperor Titus, with games and festivities that lasted 100 days. Holding more than 50,000 spectators at its maximum capacity, sitting in its elliptical structure, 188 meters long, 156 meters wide and 57 meters high. To assist to the show inside the enormous structure, the spectators accessed the cavea through its 80 different access points. Called in Latin, vomitoria, and its construction and design show the genius and advanced architecture of the Roman Empire. The stands of the Colosseum were divided into 4 galleries. The seats closest to the arena were reserved for the senators, magistrates, and illustrious patricians. While the emperor even had his own box with a private entrance, the second and third gallery were for male spectators, with the higher classes sitting closer to the arena, and the upper fourth gallery was for the wives of senators and knights. Close to the emperor sat the vestals. Young and virgin patrician women who had the power to raise their thumb up or down, deciding about the fate of the gladiator, by killing him or saving his life, as reported by the historian Cassius Dion, during the inaugural games in the year 80 AD. More than 9,000 animals and hundreds of gladiators lost their lives. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, the Colosseum's expansions included a hypogeum, which was an underground labyrinth with several trapdoors and lifts, with the purpose to carry large animals up into the arena. It also contained the gladiators' barracks, wild animal cages, and there was an underground passageway to the largest gladiator school in Rome. The facade of the Flavian amphitheater was originally made in bricks and coated with more than 100,000 cubic meters of travertine marble coming from Tivoli's quarries. It counted 3 different levels, made of 80 arches each, and for each floor, all 3 of the major orders were represented. The ground columns were in Tuscan style, the second floor featured Ionic columns, and the third floor employed more decorated Corinthian-style columns. Nowadays it is hard to figure out the Colosseum's original splendor, in fact, its actual unusual and crumbled shape is the dramatic result of Vandals' attacks which deprived it from its precious marbles and subsequent earthquakes that occurred through centuries, definitely destroying his gorgeous appearance. Our last destination, traveling through ancient Rome, is the oldest dome construction in the world, the magnificent Pantheon. The temple's unique structure remained nearly intact through centuries and centuries. Anyway, the actual building, admirable nowadays, was rebuilt in 125 AD by the Emperor Hadrianus. While the previous building was built by the consul Meminio Agrippa between 25 and 27 BC, under Augustus' reign, as witnessed by the Latin inscription on its frontal trabeation. The name Pantheon comes from Greek pantheos, meaning all gods. Actually, the temple was dedicated to 12 gods and to the living sovereign. The most surprising aspect of this masterpiece of the ancient Rome architecture is its measurements. The circular building has exactly the same diameter as its height, 43.5 meters, and the dome has at its top a 9-meter diameter oculus that allows natural light to illuminate the inside building. The rectangular facade follows the scheme of a Greek-Latin temple, made of 16 granite columns, 14 meters high. The mastery of ancient Roman builders is demonstrated in the avant-garde choice to use concrete and aggregates to build the temple structure. Starting with a heavier concrete for walls and foundations, and ending with a lighter concrete called pozzolan, extracted from Pozzuoli quarries, for the dome, this chemistry enabled the dome roof to survive for 2 millennia. The dome temple inspired countless architects and artists during the Renaissance, such as Brunelleschi, who planned his Santa Maria del Fiore dome following the Roman intuition. The Pantheon, which through centuries turned from pagan temple into Christian church, has become a prestigious resting place for prominent figures including the painter Raphael Sanchei, the architect Baldassare Peruzzi, and the Savoy's Italian monarchs.